I mostly read public domain books here on Glenn Reads Books to You, and they were written a long time ago, so they're usually racist, or sexist, or bigoted, but in there somewhere is a story, and that's why those stories are famous. Other times, I read works from independent authors, and they're delightfully not racist, but they might have adult language or adult situations, like, making sex. So that's your warning, but I'm sure you're grown up enough to handle it. Don't write to me complaining. Fall is here, which means the mice are invading my home, and I've caught 3 of them, so god damn it. No one invites you here, but yet here you are, every goddamn week. Well, you little idiot, welcome to the Glenn Reads Books to You mansion. It's a fun little bit where I pretend to live in a mansion and not just recording in my basement. This is where I read the hottest public domain books and short stories. This week, we're going to read a snippet of a collection of short stories from a book by P.G. Wodehouse called Carry On, Jeeves, and that snippet is called Jeeves and the Unbidden Guest. You want to hear about the author? Sure you do, Morn. Sir Pelham Grenville Wodehouse was born October 15th, 1881, and died February 14th, 1975. He was an English writer and one of the most widely read humorists of the 20th century. His creations include the Feather-brained Bertie Wooster. Dumb women. Good for him, writing about them, because that's not problematic. And his sagacious, I can say it, valet, Jeeves. The immaculate and loquacious P. Smith, it's just the letter P in capital with a Smith in lowercase, Lord Emsworth, and the Blandings Castle set. I love that set. And the oldest member, with stories about golf, and Mr. Milner, and tall tales on subjects ranging from bibulous bishops and megalomaniac movie moguls. So it's just a guy who wrote light humor about white people shit. A lot like the guy who did Dilbert. Fun facts, he was an Englishman who lived in France. So it was a problem for him when he learned that the Nazis were coming to France. A friend offered to fly him out, but he didn't want to leave behind his wife and dog, which I guess you get a point for being a nice guy. Also, why did his friend be like, you can leave right now, but you got to leave your wife and dog behind? Like, I'm not going to leave my wife behind, but apparently you get a point for that. He was captured and forced to a camp where he shared a cell with 4 other men and only one bed. They let the oldest man sleep on the bed while the rest of them slept on the granite floor. So that's 2 points for being a good guy. He was bounced around in cattle cars until he finally landed in a camp in Poland. No one knew where he was or if he was okay. Influential people petitioned for his release, but the Nazis instead gave him a typewriter where he wrote another lighthearted story called Money in the Bank. He was nice enough to send postcards to his literary agent asking them to send $5 to the families of other people in the camp with them, which is a very nice and risky way of telling those families that their loved ones were still alive. So that's 3 points for being a nice guy. Then one day, while playing cricket, which seems weird because as we know about concentration camps back at the Nazis, he was in the nice white person version where he got to play cricket, which seems really weird to me. 2 Nazis came up to him and told him that he's going to be forced into a hotel that he's got to pay for. Oh, the indignity. Where he's held in captivity and forced into making 5 lighthearted broadcasts to be broadcast to the British and American stations, where he even poked fun at his captors. Isn't that subversive? So that was kind of offensive. This guy is being treated real well, and he even got to make broadcasts about stuff. So the people in America and Britain were pretty outraged, and they demanded that once this guy gets out, he better get prosecuted. So when the war was over, he and his wife jumped from one hotel to another, just trying to avoid getting prosecuted, until he got arrested by French police with pretty much no charges and just kind of placed under preventative detention. Someone managed to free his wife and then have him sent to a hospital, claiming that he was unwell because it's better than being in detention. But oh boy, did he prove them wrong, because it was in the hospital that he worked on Uncle Dynamite. Yeah, this guy's unstoppable in his lighthearted white people comedies. Oh, he was able to secure visas to live in exile in the U.S., But this time, unlike the plane thing with the Nazis coming, he delayed it so that his wife could find suitable clothes and that he could finish writing his next hit, Mating Season. Moron. He wrote Mating Season and was delighted at the reception he received in New York. Even when at that same time that his book was released and he was doing his little tours, he found out everything that happened in real concentration camps to the Jewish people and didn't really bother him too much. He was just like, oh, my book's doing well. So all those points I gave him for being a nice guy just kind of went out the window. So he says of his time, of course I ought to have had the same sense to see that it was a loony thing to do, to use German radio for even the most harmless stuff, but I didn't. I suppose prison saps the intellect. So George Orwell, who didn't like him, wrote in an essay called In Deference of P.G. Wodehouse, said, it's important to realize that the events of 1941 do not convict Wodehouse of anything worse than stupidity. His rationale was, Wodehouse's moral outlook has remained that of a public school boy, and according to the public school code, treachery in time of war is the most unforgivable of all the sins, which was compounded by his complete lack, so far as anyone can judge, from his printed works of political awareness. But then the author of Winnie the Pooh called him a traitor, which I love. The Winnie the Pooh guy, was still not a good person, but probably one of the better ones so far out of all the stuff I've read. So he got back at him, P.G. Wodehouse got back at him in Mating Season by creating parodies of the Christopher Robin poems, which, screw you, man. That's a man's child. Just leave the kid out of it. But he also said of Milne, he was probably just jealous of all of the writers, but I loved his stuff. So, this bumbling, useful idiot was knighted in 1975 because England loves knighting people. What do you get knighted for? Did you do something people have heard about? You get knighted, which is annoying. I think back when in the 90s, I remember thinking Elton John got knighted. Why? This is a guy that took Candle in the Wind, which is about Norma Jean or Marilyn Monroe, and just decided, I'm changing the lyrics. Now, Candle in the Wind is about Princess Diana, and then he got knighted. I might have the timelines wrong on that. Either way, the knighting thing's weird, and this guy's a moron. Oh, thank God for the grandfather clock. Why don't we go down to the library and read this story? There you are, you all settled. Good. And then I'm going to read this, and you're going to get the hell out of my house so I can clear out the rest of the mouse traps with all the dead mice and all the mouse poops everywhere in my basement. Jeeves and the Unbidden Guest. I'm not absolutely certain of my facts, but I rather fancy it's Shakespeare, or if not, it's some equally brainy bird, who says it's always just when a fellow is feeling particularly braced with things in general that fate sneaks up behind them with a bit of lead piping. Oh, yes. And what I'm driving at is the man is perfectly right. Take, for instance, the business of Lady Malvern and her son Wilmot. That was one of the scaliest affairs I was ever mixed up with. Oh, and a moment before they came into my life, I was just thinking how thoroughly all right everything was. I was still in New York when the thing started, and it was about that time of year when New York is at its best. It was one of those topping mornings, and I had just climbed out from under the cold shower feeling like $1 million. And as a matter of fact, what was bucking me up more than anything was the fact that the day before I had asserted myself with Jeeves, absolutely asserted myself, don't you know? You see, the way things have been going, I was rapidly becoming a dashed serf, and the man had jolly well oppressed me. Oh, I didn't so much mind when he made me give up one of my new suits, because Jeeves' judgment about suits is sound and can generally be relied upon. But as I near a touchier rebelled when he would let me wear a couple of cloth top boots, which I loved like a couple of brothers, That's weird. And finally, when he tried to tread on me like a worm in the matter of a hat, I put the Wooster foot down and showed him in no uncertain manner who was who. That's a long story, and I haven't time to tell you now, but the nub of the thing was that he wanted me to wear the White House wonder, as worn by President Coolidge, when I had set my heart on the Broadway special, which much patronized by the younger set. And by the end of the matter was that, after a rather painful scene, I brought the Broadway special. So that's how things were on this particular morning, and I was feeling pretty manly and independent. Well, I was in the bathroom, wondering what was going on. It was going to be on for breakfast while I massaged the spine with a rough towel and sang slightly. And then there was a tap on the door, and I stopped singing and opened the door an inch. What ho? Without there? I said. Lady Malvern is called, sir. Lady Malvern, sir. She's waiting in the sitting room. Pull yourself together, Jeeves, my man, I said rather severely, for I bar practical jokes before breakfast. You know perfectly well there's no one waiting for me in the sitting room. How could there be when it's barely 10 o'clock yet? I gathered from her ladyship, sir, that she had landed from an ocean liner at an early hour this morning. Now, this made the thing a bit more plausible, and I remembered that when I had arrived in America about a year before, the proceedings had begun at some ghastly hour, like 6, and that I had been shot out into a foreign shore considerably before 8. Who the deuce is Lady Malvern? Jeeves? Her ladyship did not confide in me, sir. Yeah. Is she alone? Her ladyship is accompanied by Lord Pershore, sir. I fancy that his lordship would be, her ladyship's son. Put on a rich raiment of sorts, and I'll be dressing. Our heather mixture lounge is in readiness, sir. Well, then lead me to it. While I was dressing, I kept trying to think, who on earth this Lady Malvern could be? It wasn't until I had climbed through the top of my shirt and was reaching out for the studs that I remembered. I placed her, Jeeves. She's a pal of my Aunt Agatha. Indeed, sir. Yes, I met her at lunch one Sunday before I left London, and a very vicious specimen. She writes books. She wrote a book on social conditions in India, which came back from Durbar. I probably just insulted a lot of people right there. Yes, sir. Pardon me, sir. But not that tie. Not that tie. With that heather mixture lounge, sir. Oh, it's a shock to me. I thought I had quelled the fellow. It was rather a solemn moment. What I mean is, if I weakened now, all my good work the night before would be thrown away. I braced myself. What's wrong with this tie? And I've seen you give it a nasty look before. Speak out like a man. What's the matter with it? It's too ornate, sir. Nonsense. A cheerful pink. Nothing more. Unsuitable, sir. Jeeves, this is the tie I wear. Very good, sir. Dashed. Unpleasant. I could see that the man was wounded, but I was firm. I tied the tie, got into the coat and waistcoat, and went into the sitting room. Hello, I said. What? How do you do, Mr. Wooster? And have you never met my son Wilmot, I think? Maudie, darling, this is Mr. Wooster. Lady Malvern was a hearty, happy, healthy, and overpowering sort of dashed female, not so very tall, but making up for it by measuring about, 6 feet from the OP to the prompt side. She fitted into my biggest armchair as if she had been built round her by someone who knew they were wearing armchairs tight about the hips that season. Jesus Christ, what a dick. She had a bright, bulging eyes and a lot of yellow hair. And when she spoke, she showed about 57 front teeth. Just a pile of shit. I hate this author. She was one of those women who kind of numb a fellow's faculties. What a dick. And she made me feel as if I were 10 years old and had been brought into the drawing room in my Sunday clothes to say, how do you do? Altogether by no means the sort of thing a chappie would wish to find in his sitting room before breakfast. Monty, the son, was about 23, tall and thin, and Meek looking, he had the same yellow hair as his mother, but he wore it plastered down and parted down the middle. His eyes bulged too, but they weren't bright. They were dull gray with pink rims. His chin gave up the struggle about halfway down, and he didn't appear to have any eyelashes. A mild, furtive, sheepish sort of blighter, in short. Awfully glad to see you, I said, though this was far from the case, for already I was beginning to have a sort of feeling that dirty work was threatening in the offering. So you popped over, eh? Making a long stay in America? Oh, about a month. Your aunt gave me your address and told me to be sure to call on you. Well, I was glad to hear this, for it seemed to indicate that Aunt Agatha was beginning to come around a bit. As I believe I told you before, there had been some slight unpleasantness between us arising from the occasion when she had sent me over to New York to disentangle my cousin Gussie from the clutches of a girl in the music hall stage. But I tell you, by that time I had finished my operations, Gussie had not only married the girl, but had gone on the halls himself and was doing well. Oh, you'll understand that relations were a trifle strained between my aunt and nephew. Jesus Christ, I already hate this story. Yep, gotta take a drink. I simply hadn't dared go back and face her, and it was with relief to find that time had healed the wound enough to make her tell her pals to call on me. What I mean is, much as I liked America, I didn't want to have England barred to me for the rest of my natural, and believe me, England is a jolly sight, too small for anyone to live in with Aunt Agatha. Oh, if she really is on the warpath. So I braced at hearing these words and smiled generally on the assemblage. Your aunt said that you would do anything that was in your power to be of assistance to us. Rather, absolutely. Well, thanks so much. I want to put my dear Monty up for a little while. I didn't get this for a moment. Put him up? From a clubs? No. Darling Monty is essentially a home bird, aren't you, Monty? Darling? Monty, who was sucking the knob of his stick, uncorked himself. Yes, mother, he said, and corked himself up again. I should not like him to belong to clubs. I mean, put him up here. Have him live with you while I am away. These frightful words trickled out of her like honey. Oh, the woman simply didn't understand the ghastly nature of the proposal. I gave Monty the swift east to west. What does that mean? And he was sitting with his mouth nuzzling the stick. Is he just sucking on a walking stick? What the hell is going on right now? Blinking at the wall. The thought of having this planted on me for an indefinite period appalled me. Absolutely appalled me, don't you know? I was just starting to say that the shot wasn't on the board at any price, and that the first sign Monty gave of a trying to nestle into my little home, and I would yell for the police when she went on rolling placidly over me, as it were. There was something about this woman that sapped one's willpower. I'm leaving New York by the midday train, as I have to pay a visit to Sing Sing prison. I'm extremely interested in prison conditions in America, and after that, I worked my way gradually across the coast, visiting the points of interest on the journey. You see, Mr. Wooster, I'm in America principally on business. No doubt you've read my book, India and the Indians. Ugh. My publishers are anxious for me to write a companion volume on the United States, and I shall not be able to spend more than a month in this country, as I have to get back for the season. But a month should be ample. Probably not. I was less than a month in India. Probably didn't write a good book. And my dear friend, Sir Roger Cremorne, wrote his America from Within after a stay of only 2 weeks. These are probably not well-written books. I should love to take dear Monty with me, but the poor boy gets so sick when he travels by train. Well, then just stop letting him suck on things, and I shall have to pick him up on my return. From where I sat, I could see Jeeves in the dining room, laying the breakfast table. Oh, I wished I could have had a minute with him alone. Oh, I felt certain that he would have been able to think of some way of putting a stop to this woman. It will be such a relief to know that Marty is safe with you, Mr. Wooster, and I know that the temptations of the great city are, hitherto, dear Marty has been sheltered from them. Oh, he's lived quietly with me in the country, and I know that you will look after him carefully, Mr. Wooster, and he will give you very little trouble. Oh, he's talked about the poor blighter as if he wasn't there. Not that Marty seemed to mind. He had stopped chewing his walking stick and was sitting there with his mouth open. He's a vegetarian and a teetotaler and devoted to reading. Give him a nice book, and he will be quite contented. She got up. Thank you so much, Mr. Wooster. I don't know what I should have done without your help. Come, Marty, and we just have time to see a few of the sights before my train goes. But I shall have to rely on you for most of my information about New York, darling. Be sure to keep your eyes open and take notes of your impressions. It will be such a help. Goodbye, Mr. Wooster, and I will send Marty back early in the afternoon. They went out. Oh, and I howled for Jeeves. Jeeves! Sir? What's to be done? You heard it all, didn't you? You were in the dining room most of the time. That pill's coming to stay here. Pill, sir? The excrescence. I beg your pardon, sir. And I looked at Jeeves sharply. Oh, this sort of thing wasn't like him. Then I understood. The man was really upset about that tie. I was trying to get his own back. Lord Pershore will be staying here from tonight, Jeeves, I said coldly. Very good, sir. Breakfast is ready, sir. Oh, I could have sobbed into the bacon and eggs. That there wasn't any sympathy to be got out of Jeeves was what put the lid on it. For a moment I almost weakened and told him to destroy the hat and tie if he didn't like them, but I pulled myself together again, and I was dashed off. I was going to let Jeeves treat me like a bally, one-man chain gang. But what with the brooding on Jeeves and the brooding on Marty, I was in a pretty reduced sort of state. The more I examined the situation, the more blighted it became, and there was nothing I could do. If I slung Marty out, well, he'd report to his mother, and she'd pass it on to Aunt Agatha, and I didn't like to think that would happen then. Sooner or later, I'd be wanting to go back to England, and I didn't want to get there and find Aunt Agatha waiting with the quay for me with a stuffed eelskin. Don't know what the hell that sentence meant. There was absolutely nothing for it but to put the fellow up and make the best of it. Well, about midday, Marty's luggage arrived, and soon afterwards, a large parcel of what I took to be nice books. Oh, I brightened up a little when I saw it. Here's one of those massive parcels that looked as if it had enough to keep it busy for a year. Oh, and I felt a trifle more cheerful, and I got my Broadway special and struck it on the head and gave a pink tie a twist and reeled out to take a bite of lunch with one or two of the lads at the neighboring holstery. What's a holstery? Okay, I'm going to look up holstery. Come on, give me holstery. It's an inn. Well, that turned out to be boring. What with excellent browsing and sluicing and cheery conversation and whatnot, the afternoon passed quite happily, and by dinner time I had almost forgotten Marty's existence. I dined at the club and looked in at the show afterwards, and it wasn't until fairly late that I got back to the flat, and there were no signs of Marty. Oh, and I took it that he had gone to bed. It seemed rummy to me, though, that the parcel of nice books was still there, with the string paper on it, and looked as if Marty, after seeing his mother off the station, had decided to call it a day. Jeeves came in with the nightly whiskey and soda. Oh, and I could tell by Chappie's manner that he was still upset. Lord Pershire, gone to bed, Jeeves? I asked with a reserved hauteur and whatnot. No, sir, his lordship was not yet returned. Not returned? What do you mean? Well, his lordship came in shortly after 6:30, and having dressed, he went out again. At this moment, there was a noise outside the front door, a sort of scrabbling noise, as if somebody were trying to paw his way through the woodwork. Then a sort of thud. Better go see what it is, Jeeves. Very good, sir. And he went out and came back again. If you do not mind stepping this way, sir, I think we might be able to carry him in. Carry him in? His lordship is lying on the mat, sir. I went to the front door, and the man was right. There was Marty, huddled up outside the floor, and he's moaning a bit. He's had some sort of dash fit, I said. I took another look. Jeeves, someone's been feeding him meat. Sir, he's a vegetarian, you know. He must have been digging in a steak or something. Call up a doctor. I hardly think it'll be necessary, sir, if you will take his lordship's legs while I... Great Scott, Jeeves, don't you think he can't be? I'm inclined to think so, sir. And by Jove, he was right. Once on the right track, you can't mistake it. Monty was under the surface, completely sozzled. It was the deuce of a shock. You never can tell, Jeeves. Very seldom, sir. Remove the eye of authority, and where are you? Precisely, sir. Where is my wandering boy tonight, and all that sort of thing, and what? It seems so, sir. Well, you better bring him in, huh? Yes, sir. So we lugged him in, and Jeeves put him to bed, and I lit a cigarette and sat down to think the thing over. Now, I had a kind of foreboding. It seemed to me that I had led myself into something pretty rocky. Next morning, after I sucked down a thoughtful cup of tea, I went into Monty's room to investigate. I expected to find the fellow a wreck, but there he was, sitting up in bed, quite chirpy, reading gingery stories. What ho, I said. What ho, said Monty. What ho, what ho. What ho, what ho, what ho. And after that, it seemed rather difficult to go on with the conversation. How you feeling this morning? I asked. Topping, replied Monty, blithely with abandon. I say, that fellow of yours, Jeeves, is a corker. I had the most frightful headache when I woke up, and he brought me a sort of rummy dark drink, and it put me right again at once. Said it was his own invention. Oh, I must see more of that lad. He seems to me distinctly one of the ones. I hate all the language in this story. Well, I couldn't believe it was, this was the same blighter who had sat and sucked at a stick the day before. You ate something that disagreed with you last night, didn't you? I said, by way of giving him a chance to slide out of it if he wanted to. But he wouldn't have it at any price. No, he replied firmly. I didn't do anything of the kind. I drank too much. Yeah, much too much. Lots and lots too much. And what's more, I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to do it every night. If ever you see me sober, old top, he said, with a kind of holy exhalation, tap me on the shoulder, say tut-tut, and I'll apologize and remedy the defect. But I say, what about me? What about you? Well, I am, so to speak, as it were, kind of responsible for you. What I mean to say is, if you're going to do that sort of thing, I'm apt to get in the soup somewhat. Well, I can't help troubles, said Monty firmly. Listen to me, old thing. This is the first time in my life that I've had a real chance to yield to the temptations of a great city. What's the use of a great city having temptations if, fellas don't yield to them? Yeah? It makes me so bally discouraging for the great city. Besides, Mother told me to keep my eyes open and collect impressions. Well, I sat on the edge of the bed, and I felt dizzy. I know just how you feel, old dear, said Monty consolingly. If my principles would permit it, I would simmer down for your sake. But duty first. This is the first time that I've been let out alone, and I mean to make the most of it. We're only young once. Why interfere with life's morning? Young man, rejoice in thy youth. Tra-la, what ho? Well, put like that, it did seem reasonable. All my bally life, dear boy, Monty went on, I've been cooped up in the ancestral home of Much Middlefold in Shropshire. I hate these words. Until you've been cooped up in Much Middlefold, you don't know what cooping is. Oh, the only time we get any excitement is when one of the choir boys is caught sucking chocolate during the sermon. When that happens, we talk about it for days. I've got about a month out of New York, and I mean to store up a few happy memories for the long winter evenings. This is my only chance to collect a past, and I'm going to do it. Now, tell me, old sport, as a man to a man, how does one get in touch with that very decent bird, Jeeves? Does one ring a bell, or shout a bit? I would like to discuss the subject of good stiff B&S with him. Yeah. Well, with that, why don't we get out of here for a minute and just relax, take a break from the story, which is it's a good thing because this isn't the greatest story I've ever read, and we'll just go sit in a closet where I play the guitar at you and let you know about the latest upcoming novels from Penguin Random House Books. Now, there you are. I see you finally made it here into my literary closet. why don't you settle down? Do you like what I'm playing for you? This is not weird at all. Let me tell you about a new book from Penguin Random House called The Homecoming War by Addie Woolridge. About the Homecoming War? Sure. When plunging enrollment forces two rival high schools to merge, two class presidents must work together to make the schools unite. Because that's how high schools work. All the students look to the class presidents and be like, help us. But when a mutual crush emerges, they'll both have to figure out what they want and where their loyalties lie before they become the most hated people at school. Oh, that'd be horrible how they lead the others. Meg Williams is on the way to making her dreams come true as the incoming junior class president for Hirono High School. She needs a few more as an excellent college recommendation letter, and she can leave Huntsville, California, and her ghosts behind. Or at least she was on track until the school district decided to combine Hirono with their rival Davies High School. Now, Meg is wandering the pristine hallways of Davies High, with her plan threatened by Hirono's queen mean girl, Freya Allison. And the maddeningly perfect Chris Chavez. Davies High School's class president. When it turns out Huntsville's golden boy just won't step down, Meg begrudgingly accepts that they will have to work together for the year. Worse still, escalating pranks between the rival classmates and the developing crush, which is the reason why they need leadership from class presidents to stop them from their escalating pranks. Threaten to throw Meg even further off course. As homecoming draws near, both Meg and Chris will have to decide where their loyalties lie. Well, I hope they choose the school. That's The Homecoming War by Addie Woolridge. Categories teen and young adult fiction, teen and young adult romance, and teen and young adult social issues. It's a paperback for $10.99. It's coming out October 3rd at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Bookshop.org, Hudson Booksellers, IndieBound, Powell's, Target, and you know they made it when they're finally on the hollowed shelves of Walmart. Well, I'm done playing for you, and that book sucked, so why don't we go back out to the library where I can finish reading the rest of this crap story. Matt, there you are. I'm glad you're not uncomfortable in my closet while I whisper to you about new upcoming books and play the guitar. Why don't you get a little seat and sit down, and I'll read to you the rest of this story. I had, I hate it when people do that, a sort of vague idea. Don't you know that if I stuck close to Marty and went about the place with him, I might act as a bit of a damper on his gaiety? What I mean is, I thought that when he's being we get what you're saying, the life of the soul of the party, he were to catch my reproving eye, he might ease up a trifle on the revelry. So the next night, I took him along to supper with me. It was the last time. I'm a quiet, peaceful sort of bloke who has lived all his life in London. Brag, brag. And I can't stand the pace these swift sportsmen with the rural district set. What I mean to say is, I'm all for rational enjoyment and so forth, but I think a chappie makes himself conspicuous when he throws soft-boiled eggs at an electric fan. What the hell's that supposed to mean? And a decent mirth with all that sort of things are right, but I do bar dancing on tables and having to dash all over the place, dodging waiters and managers and chuckers out, just when you want to sit and still digest. I'm still haunted by the throwing soft-boiled eggs at an electric fan. Directly, I managed to tear myself away that night and get home. I made up my mind that this was jolly well the last time that I went about with Marty. The only time I met him late at night after was once when I passed the door of a fairly low-down sort of restaurant and had to step aside, dodge him as he sailed through the air en route to the opposite pavement with a muscular sort of looking fellow peering out over him with a kind of gloomy satisfaction. In a way, I couldn't help sympathizing with the chap. He had for weeks to have this good time, and ought to have been spread out over 10 years. And I didn't wonder at his wanting to be pretty busy, and I should have been just the same in his place. Still, there's no denying that it was a bit thick. If it hadn't been for the thought of Lady Malvern and Aunt Agatha in the background, I should have regarded Monty's rapid work with an indulgent smile, but I couldn't get rid of the feeling that sooner or later I was the lad who was scheduled to get it behind the ear. And what with brooding on the prospect and sitting up in the old flat waiting for the familiar footstep and putting it to bed when he got there and sealing it to the sick chamber the next morning to contemplate the wreckage, I was beginning to lose weight, absolutely becoming the good old Shadow. I give you my honest word, starting at his sudden noises and whatnot. Burp, and no sympathy from Jeeves. That was what cut me to the quick. Oh, the man was still thoroughly pipped. I say pipped about the hat and the tie. He's still focused on the hat and the tie. And simply wouldn't rally round. One morning I wanted comforting so much that I sank the pride of the Woosters and appealed to the fellow district. Taking a break for a moment. This guy, is he married? It doesn't sound like he is. He gets his comforting where he wants to be a baby and someone needs to soothe him from a man that he pays to, like, clean his house and stuff. It's just white people shit. It's white people shit from a different era. I just don't like it. Jeeves, I said, this is getting a bit thick. Sir, you know what I mean. This lad seems to have chucked all those principles in well-spent boyhood. He's got it up his nose. What, cocaine? Yes, sir. Well, I shall get blamed, don't you know? You know what my Aunt Agatha is? Yes, sir. Very well, then. I waited a moment, but he wouldn't unbend. Jeeves, I said, haven't you any scheme up your sleeve for coping with this blighter? No, sir. And he shimmied off to his lair, obstinate devil, so dashed absurd. Don't you know, it wasn't that there was anything wrong with that Broadway special hat. It was a remarkably priceless effort, and much admired by the lads. But just because he preferred the Wodehouse wonder, he left me flat. It was shortly after this that young Monty got the idea of bringing pals back in the small hours to continue the gay revels in his home. In this home. And this is where I began to crack under the strain. You see, the part of town where I was living wasn't the right place for that sort of thing. Oh, I knew lots of chappies. I hate the term chappies. I hate everything about this story. Down Washington Square way, who started the evening out at about 2 a.m. Artists and writers and so forth who frolicked considerably till checked by the arrival of morning milk. What? And that was all right. Oh, they like that sort of thing down there. Oh, the neighbors can't get sleep unless there's some dancing Hawaiian dances over their heads. But on 57th Street, the atmosphere wasn't right. And when Monty turned up at 3 a.m. with a collection of hearty lads who only stopped singing in their college songs when they started singing the old Oaken Bucket, that there was marked peevishness among the old settlers in the flats. The management was extremely terse over the telephone at breakfast time, and took a lot of soothing. The next night I came home early after a lonely dinner at a place that I'd chosen because there didn't seem to be any chance of meeting Monty there. The sitting room was quite dark, and I was just moving to switch on the light when there was a sort of explosion and something collared hold of my trouser leg. Living with Monty had reduced me to such an extent that I was simply unable to cope with this sort of thing. I jumped backward with a loud yell of anguish and tumbled out the hall just as Jeeves came out of his den to see what the matter was. Does Jeeves have his own family and home, or is he just here all the time? Did you call, sir? Jeeves! There's something in there that grabs you by the leg. That'd be Rollo, sir. I'd have warned you about his presence, but I did not hear you come in. His temper is a little uncertain at present, as he has not settled down. Who the deuce is Rollo? His lordship's bull terrier, sir. His lordship won him in a raffle and tied him to the leg of the table. That sounds humane. And if you'll allow me, sir, I will go in and switch on the light. Well, there's really nobody like Jeeves. He walked straight to the sitting room, the biggest feat since Daniel in the lion's den, without a quiver. Oh, there's more. His magnetism, or whatever they call it, was such as the dashed animal, instead of pinning him by the leg, calmed him down as if he had had a bromide, and rolled over on his back with all his paws in the air. If Jeeves had been his rich uncle, he couldn't have been more chummy. Yet directly he caught sight of me again, got all worked up, and seemed to have only one idea in life, to start chewing me where he had left off. Rollo is not used to it, sir, said Jeeves, regarding the bally quadruped in an admiring sort of way. He's an excellent watchdog. I don't want a watchdog to keep me out of my rooms. No, sir. What am I to do? No doubt the animal will learn to discriminate, sir. He will learn to distinguish your particular scent. What do you mean, my particular scent? Correct the impression that I intend to hang about in the hall while life slips by, in the hope that one of these days that dashed animal will decide that I smell all right. I thought a bit. Jeeves, sir, I'm going away tomorrow morning by the first train, and I shall go and I'll stop with Mr. Todd in the country. Do you wish me to accompany you, sir? No. Very good, sir. I don't know when I'll be back. Forward my letters. Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, I was back within the week. Now I got a cat on my shoulders, like some sort of parrot, like I'm a pirate, except with cats. Can you hear him purring? Let's see. Yeah, maybe. We'll find out later. Rocky Todd, the pal I went to stay with, is a rummy sort of chap who lives all alone in the wilds of Long Island and likes it. But a little of that sort of thing goes a long way with me. Dear old Rocky is one of the best, but after a few days at his cottage in the woods, miles away from anywhere, New York, even with Monty on the premises, began to look pretty good to me. The days down at Long Island have 48 hours in them. And you can't get to sleep at night because of the bellowing of crickets. Then you have to walk 2 miles for a drink and 6 for an evening paper. I thanked Rocky for his kind hospitality and caught the only train they have down in those parts. It landed me in New York about dinner time, and I went straight to the old flat. Jeeves came out of his lair, and I looked around cautiously for Rollo. Where's that dog, Jeeves? Have you got him tied up? The animal is no longer here, sir. His lordship gave him to the porter who sold him. Everyone treats this dog like shit, and his lordship took a prejudice against the animal on the account of it being bitten by him in the calf of the leg. I don't think I've ever been so bucked by a bit of news. I felt I had misjudged Rollo. Evidently, when you get to know him better, he's got a lot of good in him. Fine, I said. Is Lord Pershore in, Jeeves? No, sir. Do you expect him back for dinner? No, sir. Where is he? In prison, sir. In prison? Yes, sir. Don't you mean in prison? Didn't he just say in prison? Whatever. Yes, sir. I lowered myself into a chair. Why? I said. He assaulted a constable, sir. Lord Pershore assaulted a constable? Yes, sir. I digested this. But, Jeeves, I say, this is frightful. Sir, what will Lady Malvern say when she finds out? I do not fancy that her ladyship will find out, sir. But she'll come back and want to know where he is. I rather fancy, sir, that his lordship's bit of time will have run out by then. But supposing it hasn't. In that event, sir, it may be judicious to prevaricate a little. How? If I might make a suggestion, sir, I should inform her ladyship that his lordship has left for a short visit to Boston. Why Boston? It's a very interesting, respectable center, sir. Jeeves, I believe you've hit it. I fancy so, sir. Why, this is really the best thing that could have happened. If this hadn't turned up to prevent him, young Monty might have been in a sanatorium by the time Lady Malvern got back. Exactly, sir. The more I looked at it in that way, the sounder this prison wheeze seemed to me. Oh, there's no doubt in the world that prison was just what the doctor ordered for Monty. It was the only thing that could have pulled him up. I was sorry for the poor blighter. But after all, I reflected, a fellow who had lived all his life with Lady Malvern in a small village in the interior of Shropshire, God, I hate these names, wouldn't have much kick out of prison. Altogether, I began to feel absolutely braced again. Life became like what the poet Johnny says, one grand sweet song. Things went on so comfortably and peacefully for a couple of weeks that I give you my word that I'd almost forgotten such a person as Maudie existed. The only flaw in the scheme of things was that Jeeves was still pained and distant. It wasn't anything he said or did, mind you. But there was rummy something about him all the time. Once when I was trying the pink tie, I caught sight of him in the looking glass. There was a kind of grieved look in his eye. Again, so Jeeves is being cold and distant with him, which I guess if I read the rest of these stories, Jeeves constantly is helping him plot and scheme or whatever, but now Jeeves is being distant and cold just because of the tie? And was it a hat? And then Lady Malvern came back, a good bit ahead of schedule. I hadn't been expecting her for days. I'd forgotten how time had been slipping along. She turned up one morning while I was still in bed sipping tea and thinking of this and that, and Jeeves flowed in with the announcement that he had just loosed her into the sitting room. Well, I draped a few garments around me and went in. There she was, sitting in the same armchair, looking as massive as ever. What a dick. The only difference was that she didn't uncover the teeth as she had done the first time. "Good morning," I said. "So you got back, what?" "I have got back." There was something sort of bleak about her tone, rather as if she had swallowed an east wind. This I took to be due to the fact that she probably hadn't breakfasted. It was only after a bit of breakfast that I'm able to regard the world with that sunny cheeriness which makes a fellow the universal favorite. I'm never much of a lad till I've engulfed an egg or two in a burger of coffee. What? He puts eggs in his coffee? What is with all the egg stuff in this story so far? I suppose you haven't breakfasted? I have not yet breakfasted. Then why don't you have an egg or something? Or a sausage or something? Or something? No, thank you. She spoke as if she belonged to an anti-sausage society or a league for the suppression of eggs. There was a bit of silence. I called on you last night, she said, but you were out. No, awfully sorry. Had a pleasant trip? Extremely. Thank you. Did you see everything? Niagara Falls, Yellowstone Park, Burp, and the jolly old Grand Canyon, and whatnot? I saw a great deal. What, in a short amount of time? She's, traveling by train at best. She's writing a whole book. I'm moving on. There was another slightly frap silence. Jeeves floated silently into the dining room and began to lay the breakfast table. I hope Wilmot was not in your way, Mr. Wooster. And I had been wondering when she was going to mention Maudie. Rather not. Great pals. Hit it off splendidly. You were his constant companion then? Oh, absolutely. We were always together. Saw all the sights, don't you know? We'd take in the Museum of Art in the morning and then have a bit of lunch in some good vegetarian place. And then toddle along to a sacred concert in the afternoon and home to an early dinner. We usually played dominoes, after dinner, and then early to bed and the refreshing sleep. We had a great time, and I was awfully sorry when he went away to Boston. Wilmot is in Boston? Yes. I ought to let you know. But of course, we didn't know where you were. You were dodging all over the place like a snipe. Yeah, don't you know, dodging all over the place. And we couldn't get at you. Yes, Maudie went off to Boston. Are you sure you went to Boston? Oh, absolutely. I called out to Jeeves, who's now messing around in the next room with forks and so forth. Jeeves, Lord Pershore didn't change his mind about going to Boston, did he? No, sir. I thought I was right. Yes, Maudie went to Boston. Then how do you account, Mr. Wooster, for the fact that when I went yesterday afternoon to Blackwell's Island Prison to secure material for my book, I saw poor dear Wilmot in there, dressed in a striped suit, seated beside a pile of stones with a hammer in his hands. I tried to think of something to say, but nothing came. A fellow has to be a lot broader about the forehead than I am to handle a jolt like this. I strained the old bean till it creaked, but between the collar and the hair parting, nothing happened. Oh, I was dumb, which is lucky, because I wouldn't have had a chance to get any persiflage. Persiflage. Well, I'm going to look that one up out of my system. Persiflage, a light and slightly contemptuous mockery or banter. Well, we learned something new. Lady Malvern collared the conversation. She had been bottling it up, but now it came out with a rush. So, this is how you have looked after my poor dear boy, Mr. Wooster. So this is how you've abused my trust. I left him in your charge, thinking that I could only rely on you to shield him from evil. Oh, but he came to you innocent, unversed in the ways of the world, confiding unused in the temptations of a large city. And you led him astray. Well, I didn't have any remarks to make. All I could think of was the picture of Aunt Agatha drinking all of this in and reaching out to sharpen the hatchet against my return. You deliberately, far away in the misty distance, a soft voice spoke. If I might explain, your ladyship. Jeeves had projected himself in from the dining room and materialized on the rug. Lady Malvern tried to freeze him with a look, which can't do that sort of thing, Jeeves. Oh, he's look-proof. I fancy, your ladyship, that you may have misunderstood Mr. Wooster, that he may have given you the impression that he was in New York when his lordship was removed. When Mr. Wooster informed your ladyship that his lordship had gone to Boston, he was relying on the version I had given him of his lordship's movements. Mr. Wooster was away, visiting a friend in the country at the time, and knew nothing of the matter till your ladyship informed him. Lady Malvern gave a kind of grunt. It didn't rattle Jeeves. I feared Mr. Wooster might be disturbed if he knew the truth, as he is so attached to his lordship and has taken such pains to look after him, so I took the liberty of telling him that his lordship had gone away for a visit. It might have been hard for Mr. Wooster to believe that his lordship had gone to prison voluntarily from the best motives, but your ladyship, knowing him better, will readily understand. What? Lady Malvern goggled at him. Did you say that the Lord Pershore went to prison voluntarily? Well, if I might explain, your ladyship, I think that your ladyship's parting words made a deep impression on his lordship. Oh, I've frequently heard him speak to Mr. Wooster of his desire to do something to follow your ladyship's instructions and collect material for your ladyship's book on America. Mr. Wooster will bear me out when I say that his lordship was frequently extremely depressed at the thought that he was doing so little to help. Absolutely, by Jove. Quite pipped about it, I said. The idea of making a personal examination into the prison system of the country from within occurred to his lordship very suddenly one night. He embraced it eagerly. Oh, there's no restraining him. Lady Malvern looked at Jeeves, then at me, then at Jeeves again, and I could see her struggling with the thing. Surely, your ladyship, said Jeeves, it is more reasonable to suppose that a gentleman of his lordship's character went to prison of his own volition than that he committed some breach of the law which necessitated his arrest. Lady Malvern blinked. Then she got up. Mr. Wooster, she said, I apologize. I have done you an injustice, and I should have known Wilmot better. I should have had more faith in his pure, fine spirit. Yeah, absolutely, I said. Later, your breakfast is ready, sir, said Jeeves. I sat down and dallied in a dazed sort of way with a poached egg, again with the eggs. Jeeves, I said, you certainly are a lifesaver. Thank you, sir. Nothing would have convinced my Aunt Agatha that I hadn't lured that blighter into riotous living. I fancy you're right, sir. I champed at my egg for a bit. And I was most awfully moved. Don't you know, by the way, Jeeves had rallied around. Something seemed to tell me this was an occasion that called for rich rewards. For a moment I hesitated, then I made up my mind. Jeeves? Sir, that pink tie? Yes, sir. Burn it. Thank you, sir. And Jeeves? Yes, sir. Take a taxi and get me that White House wonder hat as worn by President Coolidge. Oh, thank you very much, sir. I felt most awfully braced. I felt as if the clouds had rolled away and all was as it used to be. I felt like one of those chappies, I hate the name or the term chappies, in the novels who calls off a fight with his wife in the last chapter and decides to forget and forgive. I felt I wanted to do all sorts of other things to show Jeeves that I appreciated him. "Jeeves," I said, "isn't it enough that there's anything else that you'd like?" Yes, sir, if I may make a suggestion, $50. Oh, he just wants to get paid. It's been a long week. $50? Well, that'll enable me to pay my debt of honor, sir. I owe it to his lordship. You owed Lord Pershore $50? Yes, sir. I happened to meet him in the street the night his lordship was arrested, and had been thinking a great deal about the most suitable method of inducing him to abandon his mode of living, sir. His lordship was a little overexcited at this time, and I fancy that he mistook me for a friend of his. And at any rate, when I took the liberty of wagering him $50 that he would not punch a passing policeman in the eye, he accepted the bet very cordially, and won it. I produced my pocketbook and counted out 100. You take this, Jeeves, I said. 50 isn't enough. Do you know, Jeeves, you absolutely stand alone. I endeavor to give satisfaction, sir, said Jeeves. Well, that's the end of that horse shit. Why don't we go down to the smoking room and smoke a cigarette and talk about what we just read? Well, now you're seated here in the smoking room where my new wife, has decided to put parakeets in little cages, which is a bad idea because of all the cigarette smoke. Yeah, they're all going to get lung cancer. What do we learn? Not a whole lot. It's a pretty basic story. It's just kind of fluff for fun. It's like watching a sitcom. It's like you're watching an episode of Friends. You have conflict, which is the main character has got a butler named Jeeves. He relies on him pretty heavily to a ridiculous degree. He's kind of a giant baby, and Jeeves needs to be like his dad, mom. It's kind of strange. Then he gets a conflict, which is he's already got his Aunt Agatha, which has been a problem, a thorn in his side because she disapproves of him or something. So then this other woman gets sent over who's friends with her, brings this idiot child who lives under the thumb of an oppressive person. And once he's finally got some freedom in another country, he's just going to go out whoring and drinking. So there's a conflict. You got a conflict. And of course, it's always going to be up to Jeeves to solve it, I guess. Like, I've never read one of these before. Just reading this one story, I kind of already know what all the rest of the stories are all about. Jeeves is the sort of sassy, disapproving butler who's just going to fix things for him anyways. And the main character is just kind of like this, like the author, a useful, happy-go-lucky idiot. So Jeeves basically solves the issue by going out and betting the young kid, like, hey, I'll pay you $50 if you go punch a cop in the face. And so the kid does, and then he goes to prison. This is all part of Jeeves' master plan. And of course, it all works out. And so then in the end, everything's just kind of back to normal. And there's a lot of these shorts. They're not short. My God, they're not short. That was an hour-long short story. So what do we learn? Well, like when I read Wind in the Willows, you get a story that's lighthearted and kind of fun or something, a little quirky, a little weird, sometimes a little mean, but you're just like, oh, isn't that great? My problem is that I do research on the person that wrote whatever the hell I'm about to read, and then I learn to just hate it. So this is just a reflection on the author's personality, which is happy-go-lucky, devil may care, whatever. And so here in this case, it's like you got this alcoholic kid with behavioral problems, and they just kind of haphazardly stumble their way into a solution. It's a cute story. It's fine. The story's fine. Just never learn about the author. For example, if you don't know anything about J.K. Rowling, don't learn about her. If you want to read Harry Potter, oh, you're going to love it. I read Harry Potter. I read all of them. And I thought, oh, what a fun little story. Look how they all kind of, get older and deal with more adult stuff, like that's pretty good. That's good for kids, right? Isn't this good for kids? Some problematic stuff, especially with like the little goblins or whatever that run the bank, and some other things. Definitely some other things. I was like, maybe the author just didn't really realize as they're writing it. Everyone's got a little bit of bigotry in them, but I think it wasn't mean-spirited. But then you find out about the author, like, oh god, no, this author's a horrible person. This author's a horrible, opportunistic pile of human garbage. So that's my problem here. So this story, it was like watching an episode of Friends. It was cute. If you're going to read something, just never learn about the author. So that's what we take away from this. Never learn about the artist. Just enjoy the art and close your eyes and ears and never learn about them. Well, with that, thanks for listening. And I guess you're probably going to come over again next week, which I'm going to have to find something new to read. Well, it appears you found me in the part of the podcast I hate the most, where I tell you all about the places on the internet where you can find me. You can tell I hate this because of the sound effects making it sound like a stormy night in the drawing room of the damned. Now, there's that. Are you cool? I like cool people. It's the reason why I got involved in this business to begin with, just to meet cool people. Not losers. So if you're cool, feel free to go over to my website, nuzzlehouse.com, which just points you to my link tree. Everything's on the link tree. Just go to the link tree if you want to see where I am. And of course, link tree has the dumbest URL in the world. linktr.ee/nuzzlehouse. It's the dumbest thing. If you go to nuzzlehouse.com, it's just going to reroute you over there after giving you some weird error about it not being secure. I hate it. I hate the internet. But if you go there, you get to hear some of the other stuff that I and my wife work on, like the Radio Mystery Theater show, where we try to recreate the same show that used to be on in the 70s, but they don't make any episodes anymore. So we make our own, and we just steal all their commercials. And also, just stay in the curious mind, we made a Christmas album. If you go to our link tree, you can see that we made a Christmas album. It's the first thing we did after getting married, which I think everyone should do when they get married, is start talking about the Christmas album they're going to make. And we're working on a new show where we give relationship advice by reading paranormal smut. And since I think you might be cool, you can always just email me directly, glenn.nuzzles@gmail.com. But don't email if you're a nerdling or a dork. Now, back to business. I can't believe I drank all of them already. There's got to be one left.